12 seconds. I know, I get that. Really trying to do that just so it doesn't, because it's been doing, like, if I do put the mic on as frequently, I really like to, if you haven't watched it for some reason, about 3 to, on average, people other than myself have been, cases even when I haven't even bothered to watch it, then you would know do that these types of videos with this screen up of pack openings, because I haven't opened like true packs in a while, other than last week's free gold packs, exactly 1 week ago now. I don't typically tend to talk in them. I think it's just better content. This would have been done by now if this was simply just a 2 gold rare pack opening with no audio. But the thing is, I'm thinking that there's going to be something. I don't know why. I think there's going to be something worth mentioning in one of these 2 packs, if not both. If we get kind of like super crazy lucky. And obviously, I'm just talking about really hoping for like a ton of contracts and healing cards. They're so amazing. They're so rare, so hard to get. They hardly ever come in these packs. Let's pop over to the store real quick, just as a reminder, sifting through all the nonsense that's currently in there. Yep. So this is the gold pack that's free every week for does everybody get them, or it's either I'm special, so I'm gonna get them for I'm either getting, I don't know, I'm getting twice as many, so I'm getting like 40 weeks or whatever, which is like well after the game has been dead, so it's cool. I kind of wish I had thought that through ahead of time, but there were lots of poor decisions that were made prior to this point, which should be pretty evident looking at an overall 65 team with 141k coins. Yeah, and so this pack is 15,000 coins. I wouldn't even be able to buy 10 of these with my coins. That's how sad this is. And we get 2 for free every week, so that's sweet. Which is also 300 points, which I think this doesn't cut you off when I do that. So, I mean, if you bought them, like, so, I guess you could spend exactly $3. Wait, that would be 300. So you could spend exactly $3 and get one of these, or if you wanted 2, you'd have to spend more than 5. None of those really divide well into 300. Yeah. Because even with this, the $20, that's 21. I mean, it's pretty much 7, and then you'd have an extra 100 left over, which is bought separately is the equivalent to $1. But in terms of what you could buy, would be 1 bronze plus pack for sweet 4 player items, including rares. Or 2 of the regular bronze packs, which is 8 items, 3 player items, mix of non-players, or obviously the tremendously awesome contracts pack. Wait, no, you wouldn't be able to afford that with 100 points. You just wouldn't have enough, because that pack is just so OP, so amazing. You can buy the customization pack, which sets $1, I guess is what they're saying. All right, maybe I should like do that. I don't know how long they plan on having that out, but that seems like that's like a forever sort of thing. There's no like time remaining listed on that, and I don't think that I haven't watched as many YouTube videos on this game as I should have, to be honest, partially because I feel like nobody's playing this game right now, other than the few people that I encounter in gameplay online, who I guess are just trying to take advantage of the lower amounts of players on the PlayStation side right now in competitive seasons and online play because everyone's playing Red Dead Redemption 2, and I don't have that game, but I might soon. So that could be part of this channel, but obviously not this sub format channel, which is just specifically untradeable hut cards being played in all hut formats, with a couple of exceptions, just basically for now only when testing the changes to the AI defense tuner. So from here, I was just showing the store because those are the probabilities. I show them in the like every week, quote unquote. But I've only like done this and actually talked about it. I think like this would be like this maybe only the second time or third or fourth, whatever. But those are the percentages. Basically, you're guaranteeing 74%, or sorry, 74 plus with 100%. But at 72%, you're at 77 plus is pretty common even on a single pull. And then looking for 80 plus can be a bit tougher. And those are the true gold cards at that point, like the true gold rares at least, because it's 44%. The fact they're pulling two of these means that based on how percentages work, it's and the fact that without getting too much into the weeds in terms of rings and probabilities and how this all works out, which I definitely can do, and I am talking, so this is going to probably be a 10-minute video, but as opposed to the 30 seconds that these usually are when I'm not talking, I'm not going to go too much in depth with that, other than to say sitting at exactly 44% and being less than 50, that means on the smallest possible sample size, greater than 1 being 2, it is super easy to not get the 80 plus in either of the two packs. And all I was trying to say is, I'm not succinct in anything I ever say, but would be that the percentages on the second pack have no relation whatsoever to what occurred in the first pack, and in fact, that's actually the case. Generally speaking, throughout the pack is typically how rings and probabilities, etc. work. However, EA and the specific house that built this has actually kind of adjusted that a little bit, and people have talked about this before, which is that it's basically saying it's 100% that you're going to get a 74 plus player. Like, you're going to get that every single time at a minimum, even though we've seen videos, sometimes 100% don't necessarily work out, and for obvious reasons, it is possible for a 99% to not work out, especially when you've got something that's 1% and you do get it. You can't then be upset, I guess, when a 99% does not come through, because it's basically the same thing, the inverse, the reverse, you know what I mean? So here you're getting a 74 plus, and that's it. That's all that's really guaranteed. From there, you're even again, since they're not technically saying that they're not all correlated, and supposedly they are, that you're going to get the 74 plus for sure, and then even after getting that 74 plus, you're 72% to also get a 77 plus, and to also 44% get an 80 plus, and to also get a 14% on an 83 plus, and to also get a 4.2% for an alumni player. The thing though is, for me, and I'd like to see more on this, and I guess I could go to http x.ea.com/49913 for more details. But it's like, if you get an alumni player who's 83 plus, so let's just make it real easy and say you get an alumni player who's 83. you get a base card, alumni, Newman. Um, doesn't that cover all of those? Isn't that an alumni player who's 83 plus, who's technically also 80 plus, who's technically also 77 plus, who's technically also 74 plus? Because I've seen other people try to indicate that it's like, no, okay, you're going to get 74 plus, but then you're also, that's why I was saying also, you're also going to get 77 plus 72% of the time. So on 2 pulls, you're going to get one of those. And then from there, there's not really any sort of other guarantees. Even though technically, even on 2 pulls, 72% is not a guarantee for sure that you'll get one of those. So, it's like, honestly, who knows? Who knows, man? It seems to me like if these were the way that probabilities and rings normally work, if you pulled that base alumni Teppo Numminen on the first card, and you've got however many more player cards to go, you've got at least 6 player items out of the 20, so you have at least 5 more. So let's just make it super super easy and say you're only getting 5 more. Those next 5, it seems to me, could all be fucking bronze. They could all, and I guess low silvers, they could all be less than 74. And then, out of those 6 player items, 1 being a guaranteed rare. But again, if you continue reading, and I've done this the few times that I've actually bothered to talk about this, because I feel like it's not necessarily legalese, it's not necessarily like fine print. It's just people don't, they and I don't also feel like it's EA being intentionally misleading, although they absolutely 1 million billion trillion % were for sure, both in terms of their own advertising as well as what they did through the YouTubers and other promoters of the game prior to it coming out, were extremely misleading at a minimum in terms of what you would get from certain levels of pre-order. Without getting into too much of that, because if I end up getting enough momentum on this channel when it becomes an actual channel, I think I would feel the need to adequately address that issue. And I feel like basically nobody talked about it, just because very few people, I guess, were that have a voice and that are able to reach me, which means you've got at least 1,500, but typically more like 10,000, 12 or 15,000 subscribers on your channel, and have built it over a number of years, which means you've been playing this game for a number of years, which means you've played, the hut, at least the one hut, whatever the requirement was, at least the one hut challenge game in the previous years when you owned the game, and therefore you actually did get the things from the pre-order. However, personally, I got screwed, and anybody else that saw that and did what I did, which was pretty stupid in retrospect for me to have done that without kind of checking to make sure that it was true, but whatever, is what it is. I was new to all this, didn't have a system, didn't have games, so to set myself up for the best possible starting point in this version in NHL 19, and not wanting to just give an automatic, whatever you want to call it, like easier starting point to literally every other player that I'd faced in the game who had at minimum played at least one previous season of the game, which was going to happen from a gameplay and abilities to play the game already. So therefore, the things that you could get from the game upon launch was that much more important to me, to not make it a thing where I was putting myself that much even further behind the 8 ball. So the promo said, again, without getting too much into it, said if you had 18, 17, and 16, you would get certain things. Now, granted, a lot of that seemed to, not a lot, but a good portion of that seemed to be World of Chell stuff. and I found a way to essentially kill it there without even being a part of a club. I'm not super annoyed with whatever it is that I lost out on those hockey bags, assuming that it's the same stuff that I've been able to garner from having a pretty high, in my opinion, especially looking at the top 100 and stuff like sixes and threes that I'm not even really playing all that much. Those guys are not that much further along than me in terms of my player level, and therefore the bags that I've gotten from them, despite not really playing competitively. So point being, like if there was stuff in those bags, in the roller shell hockey bags that were like special edition and only available that way and aren't gonna you can't garner them through gameplay of any type, then fuck that. Yeah, I'd be pissed to find that out. If it's something that I actually care about. Whereas like the stuff that you get from progression, um, from one level to the next, it's like I don't even look at it. Like I kind of pay a little attention to what the color is that's coming out of the bag as I open it. Is it blue? Is it purple? Or is it gold? Or for God's sake, is it whatever? I guess is less than that. What was it? Green and gray. Um, but at my level, it never should be. But sure, it still is sometimes. So that's kind of all I do is just that because that's going to tell me what like the main, according to them, grade of the main thing is out of that bag. But I it's like I found stuff that I was cool with having on my player pretty early on, and have been able to make slight changes to that, like just in terms of like having stuff like ear guards, because my guy is intentionally meant to look silly. Um, so it's like I would put on as much of like a protective helmet as I possibly could, um, just again to just make it look ridiculous. Um, but it's fun for me. I like doing it. So, well, but most of that was able to be gotten early on, and so things that have come up since then, like occasionally, be like, especially the legendary items, be like, oh, okay, that looks kind of cool. But it's like I'm not changing my jacket. I like it. Um, I'm not changing my skates. I like it, etc., etc. Um, and like I don't even give a shit at all anymore about the emotes or the celebrations. I would actually care about the celebrations, and then I guess technically also the emotes. Like that would be interesting if the HUT players talked in the game, um, since the commentary seems to suggest like oh there's got to be a lot of talking going on in that scrum like when they're messing around, um, but a fight doesn't actually break out after the whistle. Um, you you almost never hear that stuff in hockey broadcasts. They don't mic um, players on a regular, constant basis the way that they might do in other games. And even if that does happen, like they'll put a mic on like the assistant coach, and then you'll get to hear like a couple of quick pep talks that they did throughout the game. Um, like literally quick, not like a full timeout. Like they might show that, but more like 2 seconds. Like all right, keep it up, guys, and like other shit like that, basically. Um, and so like even in other sports where they've got a guy mic'd up for like the whole time, um, it's not even just that. Like let's be honest, even if the the professional sports athlete, and I'm not talking about hockey guys here, by the way, um, and I'm not talking about certain other sports either. I'm not going to say what I'm thinking of off the top of my head, but there are some professional sports athletes out there who are, either really good at their game or they're a little bit, you know, interesting, I guess, enough to have them want to be mic'd up. And then you hear the stuff that they that they show as samples of sounds of the game, and it's just like, all right, well, you get to All right, fuck it. I'm talking about football. So you got a defender, and you got a sack, got a big hit, and you hear the hit, and you're like, "Wow, that hit just sounds so crazy!" Like on that mic that was on that guy, which is like, all right, well, you got like a million super powered mics, like all around the field already that are capable of picking up that sound. So it's like it's really that much better on the one that's somehow connected to the player that took the hit. So it's more like you just want to show that that person is capable of saying something, and they almost never do, or they're just gonna be like, yeah, that was it, yeah, or like, you know, I don't know. It's just like, well, what were you expecting? I mean, I think comedians, particularly Bill Burr, he seems to be like the most off the top of my head, like the most tuned into sports comedian possibly out there. Obviously, he doesn't tend to do a lot of um, sports stuff. He's just a comedian that has sports content in his act, as opposed to like, Joe Rogan, who obviously is super involved and seems to be running into some current issues. If I saw the one or two sentence headlines from the last couple of days as an indication of that. But in terms of mostly MMA, UFC, and some other related stuff, um, is, I would say, actively involved in that arena, and I meant that more in terms of the market, but I guess could also refer to like the actual place where events take place. Um, that's a little different than basically being always a spectator and not even a like live commentator while it's going on, which is more in terms of kind of like what Bill Burr does. Um, yeah, but like he's super tuned in. I think he was the first one that I could think of that was at least kind of more prominent and that a lot of people were paying attention to and was hearing when he was like, this is this is fucking idiotic. Where you run down there and try to get the person's comments like as soon as the game ends. And yeah, it was initially kind of making fun of football, but like um, I've watched it. I've watched this thing many times. The 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 year that the Cubs won the World Series, and I don't think I have to point out specifically what year that was, since it's only happened once in the last 120 years, um, and doesn't seem like that might change again for the next 120, unfortunately, for fans of the team. Um, but it was like you watched the interviews of those guys after that. It was like, what did you think they were going to say? Like, how does this feel? It feels amazing. What are you thinking? What is going on with you right now? I can barely even speak. Okay, but right, but like, we're live on TV and it's my job to be stupid and assume that it's worthwhile for us to try to get your thoughts right now, as you can express them, even though you're, a multi-million dollar paid athlete who has an entire team around them and is usually going to be doing their best to try to prevent you from ever speaking publicly in any way that is not completely filtered for your brand and your progression, if not in terms of your ability to play the game, at least in terms of your ability to get paid from the game and all that. So you already have all that in your head. Who knows if that whole notion of like, let's get their thoughts immediately after it ends, um, and a live broadcast, would have been like better or more worthwhile when the money wasn't as good, even adjusting for inflation from those years, etc. I don't know, if that would have happened prior to everybody having a whole team around them and publicists and other handlers and shit like that. I don't know, but current state, I was like, you watch that thing, and it's like the greatest thing that had ever happened for, say, at least half of the city of Chicago, as well as lots, honestly, lots of of fans, and in many cases, longtime fans around the country and not just those that either lived here basically all of their lives until they got old, or for however long, and then moved to the main places, I guess, being Arizona and Florida. Um, but just even also people like they're people that, and not just in like Iowa, where there is I think it's the AAA Cubs team. If you're close enough to that, and obviously that's closer to you than Wrigley Field is. Um, it's not just like in Iowa. That's like the next state, one of the next states over. It's and it's also not even just throughout the country. It's in other countries, and I'm not talking about like Canada. I'm saying like um, people in Japan who are Japanese nationals and have their own uh, Major League Baseball league that has its own thing and is very different from Major League Baseball, um, and like cool in its own respects, and players who are different and more revered, almost in like godlike states in some cases, if they're good enough. So it's not like there's no type of content for that, and yet you could have an individual like that who's Japanese national, lived in Japan their entire lives, never left the country, maybe even, um, and but like they get WGN, and that was it. That was all that was needed. Because of that, they're essentially a Cubs fan, and so that person is part of the millions that were so excited at that moment, thought that was like one of the coolest things that ever happened to them, at least from like a sports viewing perspective. And then you had like, what was it? It felt like an hour. It did, but I'd say like at least not even including the time when after they left the field and went into the locker room and did that whole thing there. Even before that, just solely out on the field, like from the moment, like literally the moment after it happened, um, there was probably like 45 minutes of live broadcast, of various people, not just Ken Rosenthal, but others as well, trying to get players who would talk. And in some cases, you get them to talk for an okay amount of time, but nothing of substance, saying nothing bad about those guys. I mean, the first two, obviously, I think that they were trying to get were like Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo, and then from there, you that was when I think they were first learning about, um, in real time about Jason Hayward having led the team out, so they wanted to talk to him. And then there was the whole storyline with David Ross and his last game, his last season, and getting into the game because Lester came in and he's the only one who could catch Lester at that point, um, and manages to hit a home run. And getting back to the other point about some people being mic'd up, Rossi was mic'd for the game, and I'm not saying that there weren't cool things that were caught throughout that series. The whole glass case of emotions thing from Rizzo, pointed out by the commentators, was pretty funny. Um, if intentionally or not, I don't know. I really don't, but it was kind of funny. Um, and it did seem, as the commentators point out, it did seem to kind of potentially go over the head of Ross for whatever reason, age possibly being a reason, but he's not that far from age for me, and I got it, so who knows? Um, so that was that whole storyline. And then he hits the homer, and they've got the mic on him, and I think it was actually kind of cool because maybe he did actually think at that moment, hey, I'm mic'd up. Hey, this is my moment. Just because I'm mic'd, I'm not going to feel the need to say something, which is it's a very Marlon Brando type of fucking thing to do. That's fucking awesome. It's like, just because you said action doesn't mean I'm gonna fucking talk right now. Like I'm gonna talk when I feel like talking, and that was back when, when it was actual film in the cameras, and there was only so much of it, as opposed to now where it's just time components and going into potential overtime and issues with the unions and stuff like that could potentially cause problems. Um, so, in my opinion, without knowing a ton about it, I would assume, if there is like a minute or two or even three difference, unless you're doing it like all the time. It's probably not as significant as it would have been back then, um, when the equivalent of dead film would have been a potential issue, and it took a, an actor of that stature. I'm not gonna say caliber because I'm not saying whether he is, considered good or bad. Most people, I think, over time have considered him to be good. Um, but it took someone that had his clout, his stature at that time to be like, nah, fuck it, like say action, turn the camera on, that's fine. I will act, at the appropriate time. Um, and it seemed like that carried over to Pacino during Godfather, as well as potentially, I guess, De Niro during Godfather 2. I don't know. I know a lot about that whole thing, but I don't remember that off the top of my head. So I'm not going to say that with assuredness. So for me at least, I don't know, and I'm sure Rossi's been asked. I don't pay that much attention. So if he has said anything, and whether that public statement is the ultimate truth or not, I don't know. But for me, especially in watching it back and seeing it more than once, it was honestly, as I said, it was a very Marlon Brando-esque type of thing. I was like, all right, I'm mic'd. This is my moment. It's gonna be my moment. That's it. Like, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not even gonna like yell out or exclaim or whatever, which I think he might have done after um, crossing home plate and probably getting back to his teammates, because that was a huge deal. It was like just the camaraderie with the guys that he was playing with that year, most of which he had not played with for very long, um, at least as like a percentage of the amount of seasons that he'd played in the league, even after eventually getting up to the majors on a full time basis. But yeah, he just hits the homer, and the sound you hear is basically, you know, 3 times his foot hitting each of the bags around the end. And then I think that third base coach kind of said something of like, yeah, way to go, or whatever. Um, that was basically it. It was like almost eerily silent. Um, and I thought that was kind of cool. But then I guess, so as I'm gonna wrap this up, I think the other point of it was like, it was like 45 minutes of people running around trying to get people's thoughts, and it was like, I don't even know what to say right now, and got no words. Like, I'm at a loss for words. I can't even put it into words. It's like, how many times can you say that, and like, why are you going to expect that to be any different? Of like, wait, hold on, we're gonna get back into this, like this pile of people who are enjoying the moment right now, and like fuck that up and pull them out and make them talk to us, and therefore technically you, um, and tell you exactly like it's like, that's not gonna happen, man. Like, what do you think that they're gonna say? Because there were some candid people out there. There were some candid people on that team. You have candid people on other teams. I mean, I don't know. I was just thinking of like Ray Lewis off the top of my head. Like, you get him after, like, he might say something. Then again, apparently you get Richard Sherman on a big stop, and all of a sudden there's talk of him losing losing playing time for his comments, um, right after a big stop at the end of a game or whatever. Again, going back to football as opposed to baseball, which I was just talking about. And in that game, I guess the pitchers I'd be thinking off the top of my head, like, you know, um, Lester was seasoned enough where it was like, and he'd done it before, that he could have a few more words available. Even though, let's keep it real, he did it with Boston and he did it with Chicago, um, both with Theo in tow. So, like, basically nobody else has done that. So it seemed to me to be, like, better or more, or like, just, I don't know, just more goodness, than, like, I don't know, um, 20 years ago, winning 2 years in a row with the Yankees, or 2 years in two series in 5 years with the Yankees. Like, okay, great. It's like, doesn't seem to be as much of a as much as a feat just because it had been done so many times. Like, how many had they fucking won? Like, I stopped paying attention, and I don't think they won in the last 3 years since I did pay attention. So I think they were like, they're at least at like something like 27 or 28 at that point. So it's a lot. So all I'm saying is, it seems, and I think I'm honestly gonna stop this live broadcast and start a brand new one from this exact spot because um, I don't like where I took this, and it's my bad for being up later than I wanted to be, but wanted to get this recorded, and I went into this whole fucking thing about how it's stupid to try to put mics on professional athletes the moment after something happens and like an achievement or whatever. Because if you're lucky, if you do get any words, it's probably going to be kind of canned shit that they were probably told to say ahead of time if they had handlers who were like, hey man, this could happen to today. I'm not saying this isn't like my example of a time when that definitely did happen, but the little brief snips that I saw of this apparently happening sometime recently, I guess, of like Drew Brees setting the next record that he had. I don't know, was it touchdowns or something? I don't even fucking know. And they like seemed like, based on what they were showing, I didn't see the game, I didn't see it happen. I just saw like little snips, little highlights or whatever. And the way that they were showing it, were like coming on the field and doing like over the PA announcement and stuff like that. It would seem to me like they basically stopped the game to do a whole kind of celebration thing of the thing, which is fine. It's not like that sort of thing has never happened before. But then it was like, oh, like all my kids and all like the city of New Orleans, and it's like, hey, somebody's here. Sorry, man, coming in at the end of something that I'm about to kill. So feel free to do what everybody does in this channel and just leave without saying anything, or comment and let me know who you are. But yeah, not saying anything bad about the city of New Orleans or the Saints team or Drew Brees or anything like that, but it seemed very canned to me. But that was an aside that I shouldn't have gone off onto. We should just be fucking opening packs and talking about that, which is what I was going to do. So I'm going to end this broadcast right now and then start up another one immediately right after, and that's going to have the actual content, and we will open the 2 free packs and see if we get literally any one good card out of that. Hey, it's our boy, not my cunt. Hey, feel free to join the next one. I'll be back in like 2 seconds, man.